Hey, everybody, welcome to Paris, California. I mean, is there a more iconic backdrop than these painted rocks behind me? The oldest running track in Southern California. That's right, Paris, California. And guess what? You're on RacerXOnline.com. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for choosing us to be your guide in this 2022 new bike puzzle that you guys are trying to figure out. Maybe you want to spend your money somewhere. You guys came here, and we appreciate it. Right here, YZ450F. Yamaha went to work in 2022 to do a few things. There's not a lot of changes. This is kind of the theme for 2022, right? They went to a different spoke pattern. What they call is a 3 cross brace spoke pattern. What that does, on paper, is try to strengthen that wheel up a little bit. In the stock wheel realm of things, sometimes you get a stock wheel set, they're not the strongest, so Yamaha is trying to bring that up a little bit and also lighten up the wheel with their hub, their new style hub, and new style sprocket. So total weight loss is 0.15, not a lot of pounds shaved off this thing. Well, you guys always hit me up and say, it needs to lose weight. What about a hydraulic clutch? Well, we didn't get that this year on the YZ450F, but sometimes that is okay. This is one of the best bikes out there in the 450 class right now. This is my opinion, of course, but I feel like this is one of the most friendly machines for a wide range of riders, and Yamaha does a great job for durability, ease of riding, and just comfort. Going off of the comfort thing here, the fork and shock have been revalved for 2022 to try to get less pitching off throttle. I've been hard on the Yamaha before. When I come diving into corners, you have softer. You East Coast guys can relate to this. Off throttle, it does a lot of this, has a lot of pitching. So they went to work to stiffen that up a little bit and also revalve the shock. So when you're on the throttle, it doesn't squat so much. So you're getting less forward and back motion once you're on and off throttle. So that's important for ride attitude of the bike out here at Paris, California today. So we're going to try all this stuff out, get back to you to see if it even works, see if I notice anything. I got a couple guys with me to give you different opinions. If you think I'm full of you-know-what, there's some other guys here. You can listen to them, and we'll see how this new 2022 works. Stay tuned. All right, guys, just wrapped it up here at Paris Raceway, oldest track in California. A little bit different track for an intro for me, especially for this bike. So if I can describe Paris to you guys, especially if you're non-California guys, it's a tight track with clay base, gets hard pack, but a lot of 180s, not a lot of open air. It's what I describe an on-off track. So you're wide open off 180, so you really feel a lot of pitching, chassis feel. It actually was pretty bumpy today, so we got to do some suspension testing, which is nice. Usually this track isn't great for suspension testing, but today was actually really good. So right off the bat, again, not a lot of changes. Suspension changes, and then a rear hub and spoke change and sprocket. And a chain, I guess I forgot to mention that earlier, but that's neither here nor there. It's a lighter chain. I'm not going to be able to feel that. So for me, right away, the thing I noticed first thing on the track, and I have a lot of time on a Yamaha, as you guys know, I spend my own free time on a Yamaha. I've purchased Yamahas in the past. I noticed that it is a firmer feel off the bat with the suspension. Yamaha's goal for 2022 was to keep this bike flat. It didn't want to pitch. It doesn't want to go back. So that's their goal, is to try to keep that balance, the ride attitude of this bike in a flat manner. So I got on the track, wasn't familiar with the track that much, and the first thing I noticed, man, there is more hold up in the fork. I do like that. I'm 170 pounds. I had to actually play with the suspension a little bit today because it is so much firmer feeling in the rear for me. The fork, maybe not so much, but the rear feeling was stiffer. So on acceleration, I had to open up my high speed a little bit, have it squat a little bit more, and then I softened the low speed compression. I ended up at the end of the day going back to stock on high speed and just leaving that low speed compression out too. So I actually had to soften the rear up a little bit for me. Ran 104 millimeter sag, and overall, at the end of the day, I was the last guy on the track today. As the track gets rougher, the more you'll appreciate this suspension. It's pretty dang good for stock suspension. You guys know Yamahas do a great job in the stock suspension world. KYB is great stuff. This SSS fork has been around for years, and it is the tried and true fork for a production motorcycle. It's a great fork. All right, so I brought my buddy Greg Loop here. So being that you're retired and you're not in the best riding shape, give these guys out here, is it too much bike for you right now because you're not in the best riding shape?
No, I was comfortable. It never spooked me, never got away from me.
I think that people out there, the misconception of this bike, maybe not misconception, maybe it is a little bit true, it's hard to corner. Do you have problems cornering this bike?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's probably because the width, when you're on it, it feels wider. You know, you're on a Honda or even a Suzuki for that matter, KTM. They're super narrow through the top. I'll call it the top of the spine. Okay, I'm not in the industry. I make up my own words. But across the top, they seem narrow, and I've always liked that. This bike, it really surprised me today.
Visually, I guess when you sit on it, it looks a little thicker.
Yes, yeah.
But when you ride it, it's not.
She's a thick girl.
Yeah.
But like when she gets emotion, yeah, you're gonna like how it moves.
Right.
So with this, it never spooked me today. And I've been off a bike for a while because of my previous job. The big boss said I couldn't ride. So it's been a few years. So I'm coming back, out of shape for riding, obviously. And I've never been a big Yamaha guy. But today, this one surprised me. And now I'm thinking with my own money, I may be buying blue.
So 205 pounds?
Thank you, but no. 210 in civvies.
So 210, he's running stock suspension, and I watched you a little bit today. You're not even bottoming out on this thing.
No, not at all. It never hurt me. It had no shocks or spikes in the suspension to hurt my old broken hands, and I have steel rods in my left forearm. Been a mess, and the old girl took care of me today, and she moves. The power band's insane, and I'm sure you're going to bring that up.
Yeah.
I didn't want to jump ahead, but it cornered. She actually front wheel turned, and I like that. I don't like rear wheel turning bikes.
Right. So for me, and to piggyback off Greg, so yeah, there is a stigma about a Yamaha that it doesn't corner. For me, it's not the best cornering bike, but as a rider, I maybe don't want the best cornering machine because that means a little bit unstable. And I want a stable bike to get me into the corner fast, right? So this bike, maybe not as stable as a Kawasaki, but yet corners better than the Kawasaki in my opinion. And to go off what Greg said about being a big girl, yeah, visually it looks that way, but I've measured it in the past, and it's barely any difference between that and a KTM. So if you guys can imagine that, sit on it, and maybe what Greg's talking about, what he said, his spine on the top of this bike, it may be a little bit wider in the middle of the bike, but for me, I can grip the bike better. So when I'm riding this bike, I can squeeze my legs together, and I can actually grab this bike better than other bikes. The engine is the easiest to ride. It's
dumb easy to ride.
It's like I played with some Yamaha power tuner maps today. I actually had to tone it down because it still has that little herky jerky when you roll the corner. So ended up putting a smooth control map in it, which you guys can go check my website out. We have those up there. And for me, that helped my roll on speed. I can get on the gas sooner, and it didn't upset the chassis. So I like that. Again, I also have TP3. That's my go-to most of the time when I use this bike. TP3 map has a little bit more bottom end and a little bit longer in the mid-range, but easy to control. Now, the changes that they did make, I did not really feel that spoke change. Like they're saying it's a little bit stronger, and maybe it is. I'm going to go back home and swap wheels, which you can do on this bike, to see if I can feel a difference between wheels. It does feel a little bit firmer in the rear, but again, they stiffen up the suspension. So it could be that valving change that they did. It is for the better. So if you're a bigger guy like Greg, you will like that change. You'll get that same comfort from KYB, from Yamaha, but a little bit extra hold up and a little less pitching. So overall, not a lot of changes to the 450. It's still one of the better bikes in its class. And let's face it, Greg's mentioned about maybe buying one. You don't buy bikes that much.
No, I'm
so durability is the key thing for you. And Yamaha
absolutely.
is one of the leaders in durability.
Absolutely. They're bulletproof. The last one I had, the last 450, was bulletproof, and I never had a problem with it. Never.
So the reason why I brought Greg out here, for you guys that are older, maybe not able to corner well, not in the best shape, you always ask me, hey, is this too much bike? It is in some cases, but for Greg, he's 200 pounds. He does have some girth on him. Yes, he's in shape for life, is what I like to call it. But in riding shape, maybe 3-4 laps. You got to know your limits, know when to pull off. Greg, I asked him today, do you want to go out and ride again? He's like, no, I'm out. I'm tired. So fun bike for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always bust him up because he wasn't a big Yamaha fan. I go, man, you really got to try the newer style Yamaha. He's like, oh, I don't want to. So I brought him out today, and he was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and now I'm going to have to listen to it on the way home, the all way home, how Keefer Inc. was correct again. He always he always refers to himself in the third person when he's correct. Here we go, jab, jab, jab. But I'm going to be eating some crow today. I seriously would be thinking, I'm thinking right now about buying one of these.
So for you guys wondering out there, oh, no hydraulic clutch, I was waiting for this 450 to change. Look, just give yourself another year. I'm sure next year's bike, you know, after we get over this pandemic, maybe we will see a newer model and some updates. But there's nothing wrong with the cable pull clutch. I have no problem with it. I actually prefer it in a lot of senses. So for me, yes, it is a little bit louder in the intake area. That's something you get used to. You're not familiar with this bike. You rode KTMs a lot. Does that bother you at all?
No, it doesn't. Besides that, I need hearing aids, so it really doesn't bother me at all. But I don't notice it at all.
I have done this in the past with Yamahas. I've lowered the foot pegs. That's something you guys can look at on my site. There is some pegs out there that I can lower and give you a little bit more cockpit room, but there is adjustability through the bars. I did put the bars back, so I went back in the mount with the mount forward. You have some options up here, but you do not have options with the foot peg. That's something you have to do with the aftermarket. But overall, fun bike to ride, not a lot of changes. Kudos to the guys at Yamaha for making a little bit of a firmer ride, but yet not getting too harsh. That's really important for me. I don't want to have a harsh ride. I still want to have that comfort and that hold up. So good job to the guys at Yamaha. We'll be doing some more stuff with this bike. Obviously, you can check my website out. You can go to racerxonline.com. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. 12 issues, free Ethica underwear. You get to read stuff that you can't see on our digital platform. So very cool stuff over at RacerX. And don't forget, we'll be back with more tests. It's 2022 season, so stay tuned to racerxonline.com. See ya.